This raised the questions for me early in my life as to what is the purpose for my life? Why am I here? What value am I going to create? Is there more to life than what we experience every day? And then, as a young boy in grade school, one of my friends was killed by a tractor accident, and that raised the same question to me that was raised to my father. Life is short. Where will I be when it's over? These questions led me to conclude a number of things that varied with what we tended to be taught in our education system. First, we as individuals are not a cosmic accident. We did not just happen to exist. There is a God who caused all these things to happen. We were just talking at the table and hearing about how life is created and how cells divide, etc. This is not accidental. This happened because of God's plan, and He has a plan for each one of us. And that really comes to, it's up to us then to make a choice. We have the free will to choose what we want. Do we want to accept God's plan for our lives, or do we want to do what we choose to do? In business, I also saw faith as important, and I think about faith in business on two levels. First, if we're in business, we have to have faith and belief in the goods and services that we deliver. Otherwise, what are we doing there? Because if we don't have faith and believe in what we're doing, we should be doing something else. But at the same time, in business, we need to have Christians who stand up for who they are in the workplace. And that does not mean they have to be overt. That does not mean they have to be outspoken. It means they have to be clear in the example of the life that they live. It's important to believe in the value that your business brings. It's important to believe in the value that you're delivering to your customers, but it's also important to believe in the values that you as an individual are delivering and you are affecting those around you. It's faith in the value of work and our capability to do that work that will sustain us as professionals in our business. At the same time, it's also important for Christians to have the faith to remain true to themselves in the workplace. It's so easy to do things that aren't really you. It's so easy to spend time doing things and not being what you should be. It's important for every person to stand up for the values that they believe in and ensure that those values are kept. All of the defining characteristics of our Christian walk should be on display every day in all of our relationships. Whose we are should make it self-evident as to who we are. Recently, we've seen some very visible acknowledgments of God in the workplace through the actions and testimonies of people like Tim Tebow of the Denver Broncos or Jeremy Lin of the New York Knicks. Now, I'm not necessarily advocating that we drop to the knee and pray every time we get an order. However, these days, it's not such a bad idea, and I think everybody would understand. Now, I'm certainly not knocking any of these athletes for their visible demonstration of their faith. But I do believe that the public nature of commitment is important because it is reaching an entire generation that would never be reached through our churches today. So seeing these young men stand up in a visible way and claim what they believe, why they believe, and being willing to share it reaches a generation that our churches would never reach. I'm talking instead of that visible demonstration about the integral part of faith in who we are and how we conduct ourselves in our business and in the marketplace. We've seen many examples over the last number of years of how not to conduct business. We've seen businesses do things that have affected all of us. We've seen businesses overextend, deliver value that was not real, and that has caused a significant impact on the global community. It's affected us here in America and has spread around the world as these things come home. If there is no measurable value, there is no reason to do what it is you're doing. If there's no value being created in the work that you're doing, then you have to question, where will the measurement come? And someday, value has to be created or it will collapse. The second point that I touched on is hard work is required. In this second lesson, hard work is expected and hard work is honored. I think about Colossians 3:23, which says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart. I think about sometimes people look at Christians and Christians in the workplace, and they want to sit in a corner, they want to have a holy huddle, they just want to sit and talk about God all the time, and they don't want to do their work. That is not what is expected. We're expected to be examples of how to work. You think about the examples in the Bible. Jesus, who was a carpenter. Paul, who was a tent maker. The disciples who were fishermen. They knew how to work and they committed to work. I think about the reference that talks about giving unto Caesar what is Caesar's. When we're being paid to work, we're expected to deliver for our employees, for our employer, for our customers. That is our task. At the same time, we can live our Christian lives. God has given us talents and skills to earn a living, even as we prepare for whatever He has in store for us. My father instilled this concept in me at an early age, and I saw it demonstrated every day. I started my first business when I was 5 years old. And people say, what? Well, it was simple. I told you about how we grew up and we didn't have money. In fact, the first income tax my father paid was when he got his old age pension. That was the first time he had enough money to have to pay income tax. And there were 7 of us, so he had to teach us how to grow and how to feed and care for ourselves. So I was 5 years old and I wanted a dog. And he said, well, that's nice. What do you want? And I said, well, I want a German Shepherd. And he said, well, that's good, but how are you going to pay for it? I'm 5. I said, what do you mean, how am I going to pay for it? And he said, well, I can't pay for it. And I said, well, he said, here's what we can do. Now remember, he grew up as a farmer and he understood how things work. So he said, I'll loan you the $40 to buy the dog. You'll get a female dog and you will raise dogs and you'll be able to sell them. So my brother and I each borrowed $40, and guess what? He was true to his word. He kept a ledger of every penny spent. So every piece of food, every bowl, every dish. And so 18 months later, we had our first litter. And then it was, well, now what do you do? So he taught us marketing. So we had to market through magazines to sell the dogs. Then we had to ship them. So we had to build crates, take them to the train station, and ship them. And we sold most of those dogs over the years to the RCMP. Royal Canadian Mounted Police, as we ended up with one of the only kennels that had dogs without hip dysplasia in German Shepherds. But it was a lesson on how to work hard and see the results. So we thought we were pretty good. We had 6 pups, sold them all for about $40 a piece. Money came in. Whew, this is going to be good. He pulled out the ledger. There wasn't enough money to pay for all the bills. So did he leave us with any? No. We had to pay our debts. So we earned 0. We worked another about 9 months until the next litter came and was sold before we turned a profit. And from then on, we built out a very good dog kennel. But it was that learning from an early age that taught me what hard work is, but it taught me a whole range of other things, and it also said there is no free lunch. You have to pay for it no matter what your age, what your experience, what your background. At the same time, one of our neighbors came to my father and said, is there anything I can do to help your family? Now, I was the second youngest, and so Dad said, well, yeah, there is. He said, I'd like you to hire Murray. And he said, I don't expect you to pay for him. I'll give you some money to give him. My neighbor's scratching his head and said, I'm not sure what this means. And he said, look, I want him to understand what it's like to get up and go to work and be accountable. That's what I want him to learn. And he said, the rest is irrelevant. That's a lesson he has to learn, a lesson about hard work. The third lesson that Dad taught me was really with humility and confidence, you're capable of doing whatever it is you want to. One of the greatest gifts that a parent can give a child is confidence to be all that God created them to be. This third lesson from my father was that I could do anything I wanted to do if I had the confidence to believe that I could and put the first 2 lessons to work. He said to me, and I remember talking to him about this a year ago. He died in the spring at 100. He said, you can do anything that anyone else can. It just might take longer the first time. So when you think about that and say, any task, if I really want to do it, I can. It might take a day instead of an hour. It might take a week instead of an hour. But it can be done if you persist and put things together and then learn from that. He also taught me that confidence and arrogance are not at all synonymous. Humility gives you a willingness to take an assignment that is not necessarily glamorous, but through which you can learn and grow. So I thought about that in my own life. And in my early 20s, I was a salesperson, and I was asked to take the leadership of the worst office in North America. It placed 250 out of 250. It was in a city no one wanted to live in, and no one wanted the job. So they said, Murray, what about this job? And I was 21 years old. Am I going to say no to moving to? I said, sure, let's go. So I went and I learned a lot of valuable lessons that I could talk about for another hour in the 2 years I spent there. But what came from taking what no one else would and being humble enough to realize you couldn't do it on your own, but have the confidence to believe you could make a difference. We went from 250 to number 1 in that 24 months. I met my wife. I'd never have met her if I hadn't moved there. And I really learned the lessons that set the path for my future in business. So that least glamorous assignment in the corporation is the one that changed my life. It changed my life in many ways, including my wife. Humility also opens us up to learning from our mistakes, because it's been said that he who never makes a mistake never does anything. And I really believe that's true. The experience and insight from trying and failing are invaluable when facing the next challenge. Just ask Kyle Stanley. Now, I'm sure some of you in this room watched him struggle through that tournament where he was leading the last 8 holes, continuous deterioration. He comes to the 18th, 3-shot lead, par 5, he lays up, he goes to hit that perfect shot, just sort of over the water here, and it's one I can do every time, right into the water. I don't usually land it on the green with backspin and have it roll, I just hit it right in. Well, he hit it in the water, and as you know, he ended up taking an 8 on that hole, ended up tied for the tournament, went to the playoff and lost. So this is after leading all the way. So what did he do? The next week he came back in another tournament, was trailing by a significant margin, comes into the back 9, ends up winning that tournament. And when he was interviewed about that win, he said, "I thought through the whole ordeal I was going to learn a lot about myself, and I welcomed the challenge. I just tried to challenge myself to mentally get over it, and I knew if I could play good golf. I was able to use the experience of last weekend to take my game to the next level. The humility to learn from defeat gave him the confidence to use that lesson to win." So that then brings me to the 4th item. What are we going to leave behind? We don't know how long we'll live. We don't know whether it's today, tomorrow, but we do know that our life will come to an end. In Hebrews 9:29, it says, "Just as a man is destined once to die, after that he faces judgment." So that really raises that question. What is our purpose in life? Are we finding true meaning in what we do every day in our life? Will anyone remember us after we're gone? What are we creating for today and for eternity? Those are the questions I believe we need to ask ourselves every day.